Claudia, and this is the Tonight Show without Jimmy Fallon. Our first guest is Brandon.
Hello.
How are you doing, Brandon?
Good, thank you.
That's great. All right, Brandon, we are going to talk about our first topic for women's rights, and we are going to talk about what rights women did not have.
American women cannot vote, and they cannot serve on juries or other governmental jobs. Republican motherhood gave women the role of educating their children to be virtuous citizens of the new American Republic. This allowed many women to become educated and gain an awareness of American politics. But because they could not vote or hold governmental jobs, they could not act on these new learnings of politics. This was opposed to men at the time. This era was known as the era of common men because people like Andrew Jackson were gaining the popular vote in the elections. Also, during this time, men were gaining new power and wealth due to southern plantation agriculture and northern manufacturing job opportunities that were opening up. The restrictions put on women and their role in educating children gave the question of what their role would be going forward in the country.
Brandon, is there any ridiculous things that women cannot do?
There's many strange restrictions put on women by men who saw themselves as superior. One of these restrictions was that women could not smoke cigars.
That's crazy. Come on, seriously? Wow. Well, Brandon, it was really great talking to you today.
Thanks for having me.
The last guest we have tonight is Matthew. Matthew, how are you doing tonight?
Outstanding. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing outstanding too. Alright, so we are going to talk about what certain women proposed and what they did to change it.
Okay, so some certain women that did stuff was Margaret Fuller, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Susan B. Anthony. So Margaret Fuller, she wrote Women in the 19th Century in 1845, which affected the women's rights movement. And in the essay there, she had many transcendentalist ideas that were expressed. And around where she lived, she created conversations, which were discussions with some of the most intelligent women in the Boston area. Her book proposed plans for relieving women's social restrictions and using their abilities to the fullest. The next person we have is Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She desired to excel in intellectual and other male spheres. Held the Seneca Fall Convention in July 1848, where the Declaration of Sentiments was drawn up and proposed that women should be allowed to vote as well. She was one of the most prominent leaders of the women's rights movement, publishing the Woman's Bible, which declared that religion was the leading cause of oppression. She mentored Susan B. Anthony, which they actually worked together, and they became partners. Anthony leaves her and ultimately gets the credit for ending women's suffrage. And lastly, we have Susan B. Anthony. She voted illegally in the election of 1872 and paved the way for women's political rights. She was fined at that $100 for that. Born into a tight-knit Quaker family who believed in education. In Quaker meeting houses, men and women spoke equally, and Susan thought that that is how it's supposed to be everywhere. Her trial for voting illegally had an all-male jury. She was not allowed to speak for her own defense, and her vote did not count in that election. Women were finally given the right to vote in 1920, 16 years after Susan B. Anthony died. In 1864, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton founded the National Women's Suffrage Association. She not only fought to end women's suffrage, but also for women to have a right to own property.
Did you know that Dorothy Dix, she proposed to create mental hospitals, and something that happened with her is that actually when the legislative assembly, when they looked after her once for the Republic, they actually created mental hospitals. Did you know that? And also, did you know that Lucy Stone, with her husband, she changed her maiden name? It was a cool thing to say. Matthew, thank you for spending your time with me today on this talk show.
It's my pleasure.
Finally, guys, the last topic will be spoken by me because I really couldn't get any more guests for this, and I thought, why not? Why not just do it myself? So, that's what I'm going to do. The final topic I will be speaking about today is the overall success of women. Through the 19th century, higher education became more widely available to women. Women's academics were established, including the two most famous, Troy Female Academy, founded in 1821 by Emma Willard, and Mount Holyoke Female Seminary, founded in 1837 by Mary Lyon. Troy was the first private secondary school for women in the United States, while Mount Holyoke became the first women's college in the United States. Oberlin College, a co-educational institution, was founded in 1833 and was the first American college to accept women and African Americans. American women began their first organized effort to right the gender wrongs of society and achieve political, social, and economic equality for women. Although many of their goals, including the right to vote, were not achieved until the 20th century, the activist women of antebellum America laid the vital groundwork upon which progress could be made. Also, the most famous successes from the efforts of women banding together in order to fight for women's rights will be the 19th Amendment in 1920. The 19th Amendment was put in place to allow women the right to vote throughout the United States of America. This famous amendment followed other successes such as the right for women to vote in other countries around the world and in smaller successes such as individual territories or states in the U.S. allowing women to vote. In 1869, suffrage rights guaranteed to women in the Wyoming Territory. In 1870, suffrage rights for women in Utah Territory. In 1890, Wyoming joins the Union as the first state with voting rights for women. By the 1900s, women also can vote in Colorado and Idaho. New Zealand is the first nation to give women suffrage. In 1914, Montana and Nevada give voting rights to women. In 1917, women win the right to vote in North Dakota, Ohio, Indiana, Rhode Island, Nebraska, Michigan, New York, and Arkansas. In 1918, the women in Austria, Canada, Czechoslovakia, Germany, Hungary, Ireland, Poland, Scotland, and Wales are given voting rights. As you see in the political cartoon, politics was no place for women. Examples to back this up was in 1866, Elizabeth Cady Stanton decided to run for Congress. She only received 24 of 12,000 votes, though. In 1867, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susie B. Anthony, and Lucy Stone pleaded to a subcommittee of the New York State Constitution Convention to revise the Constitution to include women's suffrage. Their efforts failed. Also in 1867, Lucy Stone, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton go all over New York State speaking in favor of women's suffrage. Both black and women's suffrage is voted down again. In 1915, suffrage referendum in New York State fails. In 1918, the House of Representatives passed a vote in favor of a women's suffrage amendment. The resolution is turned down by the Senate. In 1872, Susan B. Anthony registered and voted in Rochester, New York, before the 19th Amendment was ratified, stating that the 14th Amendment gave her the right to vote. Unfortunately, several days later, she was arrested and put in jail. She was fined $100. In 1917, members of the National Woman's Party made signs and demonstrated in front of the White House. Alice Paul and 96 other suffragists were arrested and put in jail for blocking the traffic. The women went on a hunger strike to protest their being arrested and the harsh treatment that they received. The women were brutally force-fed. In the next political cartoon, you will see a picture of a woman in the woman's sphere. With beliefs such as the cult of domesticity, men were seen as the former leaders because of industrialization. So, the woman took charge of the household and children, as moral leaders in the home. The most popular occupation for educated women was teaching. Teaching was considered an extension of motherhood, so female teachers faced little opposition on the basis of gender. In fact, many schools wanted to hire women since they could get away with paying women lower wages for doing the same work male teachers would be doing. Young ladies set up schools or were hired to teach all over the country. The more adventuresome traveled to the west and to the frontier areas to set up schools and teach the children of settlers. Nursing was another occupation in which many women worked. Professional training did not exist until after the war, so women learned from experience. The medical field had long been dominated by women who worked as midwives up to the beginning of the 19th century. At the point, males began dominating medicine by requiring certification for practicing medicine and making the role of the doctor more important than it had been in the past. Of course, the resistance of men in the profession and of American medical schools made it exceedingly difficult for women to become doctors. Some, such as Elizabeth and Emily Blackwell, were able to circumvent conventions somewhat and study medicine. Even women who were not well educated had more opportunities for employment than they had in the previous century. Factories such as the Lowell Mills hired many women in the Northeast, especially in Massachusetts, to make things ranging from cotton textiles to shoes. While these factories paid meager wages, the amounts were still higher than most other occupations open to women at the time. Some did piecework at home in their spare time, sewing or embroidering items which were purchased by factories by the piece. Many women, especially free African Americans and Irish immigrants, worked as domestics, cooking, cleaning, and tending their children of well-to-do families. Women who were not employed for paid work became increasingly involved in activities outside the home. Charitable and social reforming organizations provided outlets for women's skills and creativity, as well as opportunities for women to make contributions to society beyond their roles as wives and mothers. Women were still not allowed to be in politics, however, and were not given the right to vote or speak in conventions. Finally, you will see an excerpt from Lucy Stone's speech, "The Disappointment is the Lot of Women." Born and raised in Massachusetts, Lucy Stone earned money as a teacher to pay for her college education. Her participation in the abolitionist movement and other more reform efforts gave her experience as a political activist and public speaker, which carried into the struggle for women's rights. In 1848, she delivered the speech at the Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York, to rally support for the women's rights struggle. "I am detaining you too long, many of you standing that I ought to apologize, but women have been wronged so long that I may wrong you a little. I have seen a woman at manual labor turning out chair legs in a cabinet shop, with a dress short enough not to drag in the shavings. I wish other women would intimidate her in this. It made her hands harder and broader. It is true, but I think a hand with $1.25 a day in it better than one with a cross 9 pence. The widening of woman's sphere is to improve her lot. Let us do it, and if the world scoff, let it scoff. If it sneer, let it sneer," she said. In this, she is saying that women need to improve how they are treated by talking about a woman who wore something that she was not able to wear, and how it made her look stronger and more sophisticated. She says to do it no matter what anyone thinks. For women to stand up and wear whatever they want, because they deserve to.